In a small town where secrets fester beneath the surface, two couples seem to have it all: wealth, friendship, love. But behind closed doors, betrayal lurks in the most unexpected places. When two best friends unknowingly sleep with each other's wives, it sets off a scandalous chain of events that will tear their lives apart. Lies, DNA tests, and a shocking twist reveal a truth no one is ready to face. In this web of deceit, no one is safe, not even the children. In the bustling city of Lagos, where the rhythm of life never truly paused, two families stood as the epitome of harmony and success. Adam and Kemi, a power couple, lived in an opulent home on the prestigious Victoria Island. Adam, a charming businessman with a knack for persuasion, often boasted of his sharp mind and sharp suits. Kemi, his elegant wife, was the glue that held their family together, renowned for her philanthropy and impeccable style. Across the city, Andrew and Irene shared a similar aura of perfection. Andrew, an influential tech entrepreneur, had built an empire from scratch, earning him respect and envy in equal measure. His wife, Irene, a vivacious and warm woman, complemented his stoic demeanor with her lively charm. Adam and Andrew had been best friends since their university days, their bond forged in the fire of shared ambitions and mischief. Kemi and Irene, on the other hand, were practically sisters, their friendship strengthened by shared secrets and endless laughter. The two couples frequently dined together, went on vacations, and were seen as the quintessential modern African families. But beneath the surface of perfection lay a tangled web of secrets that threatened to unravel them all. It was a humid Thursday evening when Adam and Irene found themselves at the luxurious Grand Sapphire Hotel. Theirs was a relationship born out of stolen glances, lingering touches, and late-night confessions. What started as harmless flirtation had spiraled into a torrid affair. Adam reclined on the plush bed, watching Irene adjust her silk dress in front of the mirror. The dim lighting accentuated her features, making her look almost ethereal. He reached for his glass of cognac, his mind wandering to how seamlessly they had managed to deceive their spouses. Suddenly, Adam's phone vibrated on the bedside table. It was Kemi. "Hello, my love," he answered, forcing a casual tone. "Adam, you're still at the office?" Kemi's voice carried a hint of suspicion. "Yes, darling. The meeting is running longer than expected," Adam lied effortlessly, his eyes never leaving Irene. "You'll be late coming home then?" "Unfortunately, yes. Don't wait up for me." As he hung up, Irene chuckled. "You're getting better at this," she teased, slipping into her heels. Before Adam could respond, Irene's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting. It was Andrew. "Hello, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with affection. "Irene, where are you?" Andrew's voice was calm but probing. "I'm with Kemi," she replied confidently, weaving a tale of their supposed day together. "We went shopping at the new mall and then had lunch at the Bistro Cafe. We've been catching up on so much." There was a pause on the other end before Andrew asked, "Which Kemi are you referring to?" "Adam's Kemi, of course," she answered, a slight edge of impatience creeping into her voice. Andrew chuckled. "That's interesting because I'm here with Adam right now." The words hit Irene like a thunderbolt. Her eyes darted to Adam, who had frozen mid-sip. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice faltering. "Positive. We've been discussing business all evening," Andrew said smoothly. Irene's heart pounded in her chest as she ended the call. Adam, sensing something was amiss, leaned forward. "What's wrong?" "That was Andrew. He said he's with you right now." Adam frowned, his mind racing. "That's impossible. I've been here with you all evening." The gravity of the situation began to sink in. Irene clutched her phone tightly, her mind a whirlwind of confusion. How could he be with you, and why would Kemi say she's with me when she's not? Adam paced the room, his usually sharp mind clouded with doubt. Something's not adding up. "Do you think they're lying to cover something up?" "Cover what?" Irene asked, panic rising in her voice. Neither of them dared to voice the thought that was beginning to form. What if their respective spouses were also entangled in something they couldn't yet comprehend? Later that night, the silence at home was deafening. Adam arrived late, his mind still grappling with the evening's revelations. Kemi greeted him with her usual warmth, but he noticed a flicker of something behind her eyes. Was it guilt, or was it suspicion? Across town, Irene slipped into bed beside Andrew, who seemed unusually attentive. "How was your day?" he asked, his tone casual but laced with curiosity. "Good," she replied, forcing a smile. "How was your meeting with Adam?" Andrew smirked. "Productive, as always." The layers of deceit deepened, their web tightening around them all. The following weeks brought more questions than answers. Adam began observing Kemi more closely, noticing her hushed phone conversations and sudden bursts of laughter while texting. Irene, too, found herself scrutinizing Andrew's every move, from his late-night meetings to his unexplained absences. One fateful evening, the truth began to emerge in the most unexpected way. Kemi and Andrew, wrapped in their own web of lies, met at an upscale lounge downtown. Their affair had been ongoing for months, a sordid escape from their respective marriages. "I think Adam suspects something," Kemi admitted, her voice tinged with worry. "He won't find out," Andrew assured her, his hand resting on hers. "We've been careful." But neither of them knew that across the city, Adam and Irene had orchestrated a similar rendezvous. Over dinner, Irene confessed her suspicions about Andrew. "He's been acting strange lately. And that night at the hotel—" She trailed off, her gaze meeting Adam's. "I've noticed the same with Kemi," Adam admitted. "It's like she's hiding something." Their shared frustration and confusion formed an unexpected bond between them. But as they leaned closer, sharing secrets and solace, they failed to see the storm brewing on the horizon. The first cracks appeared during a family dinner that both couples attended. The tension in the air was palpable as glances were exchanged and conversations stumbled. A seemingly innocent remark from one of the children about Uncle Andrew's special hugs set off a chain reaction of suspicion. Adam's eyes narrowed as he turned to Kemi. "Special hugs? What's that about?" Kemi faltered, her usual composure slipping. "Oh, it's nothing. The kids are just being silly." But the seed of doubt had been planted. The climax came weeks later when a routine hospital visit led to the discovery that neither Adam nor Andrew was the biological father of their respective children. The DNA results were the final thread that unraveled the web, forcing all four to confront the ugly truth. The full unraveling of this intricate tale lies ahead, with secrets, betrayals, and the devastating consequences that will change their lives forever. The spiral of truth. The dinner table had always been a symbol of unity for the two families, but tonight it was a battlefield of silence, punctuated by strained smiles and awkward exchanges. Adam's mind raced as he replayed the earlier conversation with Kemi. Could there be more to her innocent interactions with Andrew? Across the table, Andrew locked eyes with Irene, his thoughts mirroring Adam's. The children's laughter in the background seemed like a cruel juxtaposition to the storm brewing between the adults. Finally, Andrew cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "Adam, how's business these days?" Adam's lips curved into a forced smile. "Busy, as always. And you?" "Thriving," Andrew replied, his tone deliberately cheerful. The women exchanged nervous glances, each sensing the underlying tension but unwilling to address it. Kemi reached for her glass of wine, her fingers trembling slightly. Irene, meanwhile, busied herself with serving the children, avoiding eye contact. As the evening dragged on, the cracks in their facade widened. Little did they know, the revelations to come would shatter everything they had built. The first real confrontation happened days later when Adam, unable to shake his suspicions, decided to investigate. He hired a private investigator to follow Kemi. The results were swift and damning. Photographs of Kemi and Andrew entering a boutique hotel together were delivered to Adam in a discreet envelope. He stared at the images, his heart pounding with a mix of rage and disbelief. His best friend, his wife. Adam poured himself a drink, the weight of betrayal pressing heavily on his chest. Memories of their shared laughter, their trust, and their bond now felt like cruel illusions. Meanwhile, Irene's suspicions about Andrew also grew. He had become distant, his excuses increasingly flimsy. Her heart sank when she discovered receipts for expensive dinners and hotel bookings, none of which included her. She confronted him one evening, her voice trembling. "Andrew, where were you last Friday night?" He looked up from his phone, feigning innocence. "At the office, working late." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me. I found this." She slammed a hotel receipt onto the table. Andrew's expression darkened, but he quickly recovered. "It was a business meeting." "With who?" she demanded, her voice rising. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. The evasive answer only fueled her anger. Andrew, if you're cheating on me, just say it. His silence was deafening. The storm finally erupted during a family barbecue at Andrew and Irene's house. Adam arrived with Kemi, his demeanor colder than usual. Irene, still seething from her confrontation with Andrew, greeted them with a forced smile. The men retreated to the patio with beers in hand, their conversation strained. The women, meanwhile, found themselves alone in the kitchen. Irene, are you okay? Kemi asked, her voice laced with concern. Irene hesitated, her emotions bubbling to the surface. No, I'm not. Andrew is hiding something. I don't know what to do. Kemi's heart raced. Could Irene suspect her relationship with Andrew? I'm sure it's nothing, she said weakly. It's not nothing, Irene snapped, her frustration boiling over. He's lying to me, Kemi. And I think... She trailed off, her eyes searching Kemi's face for answers. Kemi looked away, guilt eating at her. Outside, the tension between Adam and Andrew reached its breaking point. Andrew, can I ask you something? Adam began, his tone deceptively calm. Of course. Have you ever betrayed someone close to you? Andrew froze, caught off guard by the question. What do you mean? Adam leaned in, his voice low and menacing. You know exactly what I mean. Their eyes locked, the unspoken accusations hanging heavily in the air. The barbecue ended abruptly, with both couples retreating to their homes in icy silence. That night, Kemi found Adam pacing the living room, the photographs spread out on the coffee table. What's this? She asked, her voice trembling. This, Adam spat, is proof of your betrayal. He shoved the images into her hands. Kemi's face drained of color as she flipped through the photographs. Adam, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been sneaking around with my best friend? He roared. Tears streamed down her face. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean to hurt you. Adam's laughter was bitter. Didn't mean to hurt me? Kemi, you've destroyed everything. Across the city, a similar scene played out between Andrew and Irene. She had hired her own investigator, and the evidence was damning. How could you? Irene cried, throwing the photographs at him. Andrew remained silent, his guilt written all over his face. You've humiliated me, she continued, her voice breaking. And for what? Kemi? His silence was her answer. Weeks later, the couples found themselves face to face in a lawyer's office, ready to divide their assets and move on. But fate had one final twist in store. The lawyer, a composed older man, cleared his throat. Before we proceed, there's one issue we need to address. What now? Adam snapped, his patience worn thin. It appears there's been a mix-up with the paternity tests for your children. Silence fell over the room. What are you talking about? Andrew asked, his voice tinged with panic. The lawyer hesitated before continuing. Neither of you is the biological father of your respective children. The room erupted into chaos. What does that even mean? Kemi demanded, her voice rising. It means, the lawyer said carefully, that Adam is the biological father of Irene's children and Andrew is the biological father of Kemi's children. Shock and disbelief washed over them. This can't be true, Adam whispered, his hands shaking. It is, the lawyer replied. Kemi and Irene stared at each other, their betrayal laid bare. I knew things were complicated, Irene said bitterly. But this is a nightmare. The couples left the office in stunned silence, their lives irrevocably changed. The fallout was swift and brutal. The children were swapped, a painful process that left emotional scars on everyone involved. But just as they began to adjust, another complication arose. Kemi was pregnant. Whose child is it? Adam demanded, his voice cold. I don't know, Kemi admitted, tears streaming down her face. The revelation was a cruel reminder of the tangled web they had woven. The drama continued to unfold as they navigated the consequences of their actions. Friendships were shattered, families torn apart, and trust destroyed. But in the chaos, there was also a strange sense of clarity. For the first time, they were forced to confront their choices, their mistakes, and the lies that had brought them to this point. And as they stood at the precipice of their new lives, one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The weight of secrets. Kemi's pregnancy became the tipping point. The four of them, now more fractured than ever, could no longer pretend that their lives had any semblance of normalcy. Adam and Andrew both demanded answers, but Kemi was as lost as they were. I'll get a paternity test after the baby is born, Kemi offered one evening, her voice shaky and thin. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Adam stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. Do you even hear yourself, Kemi? This isn't just about a test. It's about everything. The lies, the betrayal, the destruction of everything we built together. And you think I don't feel that every second of the day? She snapped, her guilt simmering just below the surface. I'm the one carrying this child. I'm the one who doesn't even know if it belongs to my husband or to my mistake. Adam turned away, unable to meet her eyes. It's not just you, Kemi. Everyone's hurting. And the worst part? It's the children who are paying for our sins. Across town, Andrew and Irene were having a similar conversation, though it was punctuated by sharp words and long silences. I never imagined you could stoop so low, Irene spat, pacing the living room. Kemi, of all people? My best friend? Andrew leaned back on the couch, his hands clasped tightly together. And you think you're innocent? You think I didn't notice your little moments with Adam? The way you lit up whenever he was around? Her head snapped toward him, disbelief etched across her face. Don't you dare deflect this onto me. I made a mistake, yes, but you built an entire relationship with her behind my back. Enough! Andrew roared, standing abruptly. We're both guilty, Irene. There's no moral high ground here. The only thing left is figuring out how to survive this mess. Weeks turned into months, and the scandal spread through the community like wildfire. What had once been a carefully hidden secret was now public fodder. Whispers followed Kemi and Irene wherever they went, and the men were no less scrutinized. Did you hear about Adam and Andrew? One market vendor whispered to another as the two women passed by. Imagine swapping children like they're goods, the other replied, shaking her head. The weight of public judgment only added to the tension within the couple's fractured relationships. A sudden revelation. Kemi's pregnancy progressed, and soon it was time for her to deliver. The birth was difficult, but she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The joy of new life was immediately overshadowed by the looming question, who was the father? The paternity test results came a week later, and the truth was as devastating as they had feared. The child was neither Adam's nor Andrew's. The revelation plunged the group into deeper chaos. How is this possible? Adam demanded, pacing the room. Kemi sat silently, clutching the baby to her chest, tears streaming down her face. I don't know. I don't know how this happened. Who else were you with? Andrew pressed, his tone icy. No one, she cried. It doesn't make sense. The doubt in their eyes was unbearable. Kemi's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of her life. Could there have been a night she didn't remember? Could someone have taken advantage of her? The uncertainty hung over them like a dark cloud, driving an even deeper wedge between the once close families. An unexpected twist. Amidst the turmoil, a new figure entered the scene. Oladele, Kemi's former colleague from her old job. He reached out to her one evening, claiming he had something important to discuss. I heard about everything, he began hesitantly when they met at a small cafe. Kemi looked at him suspiciously. And? He sighed, fidgeting with his coffee cup. I don't know how to say this, but there's a chance the baby might be mine. Her heart stopped. What are you talking about? Oladele leaned forward, lowering his voice. Do you remember the office party last year? You'd had a lot to drink, and we spent the night together. Kemi's mind reeled. She had vague memories of that night, but she had always dismissed them as a blur. Could it be true? I didn't want to say anything. Oladele continued, but when I heard about the paternity test, I felt I had to come forward. Kemi stared at him, a mix of shock and fury building inside her. You've got to be kidding me. You waited all this time? I didn't want to ruin your life, he said defensively, but it seems like it's already falling apart. She left the cafe in a daze, her world now more complicated than ever. Confrontations and consequences. Kemi decided to tell Adam the truth that evening. He sat across from her, his expression unreadable as she recounted her meeting with Oladele. So, let me get this straight, Adam said slowly, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Not only did you cheat on me with my best friend, but now there's a random colleague in the mix? Kemi, is there anyone you haven't been with? She flinched at his words, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't like that, Adam. I didn't even remember that night until he told me. Convenient, he snapped, standing abruptly. I'm done, Kemi. I can't do this anymore. His words were a dagger to her heart, but she couldn't blame him. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Irene, meanwhile, found herself grappling with her own guilt. The truth about Kemi's baby forced her to confront the depths of her betrayal. She reached out to Kemi one evening, seeking closure. "We destroyed everything, didn't we?" Irene said softly as they sat together on a park bench. Kemi nodded, her gaze distant. "I never thought it would end like this. I thought I had control, but everything spiraled out of my hands." "We hurt them," Irene continued, her voice heavy with regret, "but we hurt ourselves more." Their conversation marked the beginning of a fragile truce between the women, though it did little to heal the wounds they had inflicted on their families. The final twist. Months passed, and life continued in its fractured way. Adam and Andrew, though no longer close, remained cordial for the sake of their children. Kemi raised her son with the help of her mother, while Irene focused on rebuilding her life. But just when they thought the drama had ended, another bombshell dropped. Irene discovered she was pregnant. The news sent shockwaves through the group. Irene claimed the baby was Andrew's, but Adam couldn't shake the nagging doubt in his mind. "Are you sure it's not mine?" he asked her one evening when they ran into each other at a mutual friend's event. Irene's face flushed. "I'm certain, Adam, you were never part of my life like that." But the tension in her voice suggested otherwise. As the due date approached, the question of the baby's paternity loomed over them, threatening to reignite the chaos they had worked so hard to bury. The once close families now existed in a fragile truce, their lives forever altered by the web of secrets, lies, and betrayals they had spun. Only time would tell if they could ever truly find peace, or if the cycle of scandal would continue to haunt them. A new web of uncertainty. The revelation of Irene's pregnancy was like a thunderstorm rolling into an already chaotic landscape. The delicate truce between the four was shattered, replaced by a fresh wave of accusations and denials. Andrew demanded answers, his voice rising in anger as he confronted Irene one evening. "Are you seriously telling me this child might not be mine?" he shouted, his fists clenched. "Do you have any idea what this means for us?" Irene, her hands trembling, struggled to maintain composure. "I don't know, Andrew. I wish I could say for sure, but after everything that's happened, after everything you caused," he shot back. Her face crumpled under the weight of his words. "Don't act like you're innocent in all this. You betrayed me with my best friend Andrew. Do you think I forgot that?" The room fell into an uneasy silence, the only sound the faint hum of the ceiling fan. Across town, Kemi was processing the news with a mix of anger and relief. While she was grateful that her baby's paternity drama had been somewhat resolved with Oladele stepping in, the idea that Irene's child could potentially be Adam's left her reeling. "This just never ends," she muttered, pacing the living room as Adam sat on the couch, his head buried in his hands. "I need to know," Adam said quietly, his voice muffled. "Know what?" Kemi stopped pacing, looking at him. "If the baby is mine." He looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and longing. Kemi's heart sank. Even after everything they'd been through, she could see that part of him still cared deeply for Irene. "What happens if it is?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adam didn't answer. The test that changed everything. Unable to live with the uncertainty, the four of them decided on another paternity test for Irene's unborn child. The waiting period was excruciating, filled with awkward silences and sharp glances whenever they crossed paths. When the results finally arrived, they gathered at a neutral location, a small cafe on the outskirts of town. The air was thick with tension as the envelope was placed on the table. Adam's hand trembled slightly as he reached for it. "Let's get this over with," he said, tearing it open. The silence that followed was deafening. "The baby is mine," Adam said finally, his voice hollow. Kemi felt like the ground had been pulled from under her. Irene closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. Andrew sat back in his chair, his face a mask of rage. "So this is it?" Andrew said, his voice dangerously calm. "After all the lies and betrayals, this is how it ends?" "It doesn't have to end," Irene said quickly, reaching for his hand. "We can work through this. Please, Andrew." He pulled away, his jaw tightening. "You think I can raise another man's child? His child?" He gestured toward Adam, who looked away, guilt etched across his face. The breaking point. That night, Andrew packed his belongings and left the home he shared with Irene. "I can't do this anymore," he said as he stood by the door, a suitcase in hand. "Every time I look at you, all I see is betrayal." Irene didn't try to stop him. She stood silently, tears streaming down her face as he walked out of her life. Adam, meanwhile, moved into a separate apartment, leaving Kemi behind to process the wreckage of their marriage. "I can't stay here," he told her. "Not with everything that's happened." "And what about us?" Kemi asked, her voice breaking. "There is no us, Kemi. Not anymore." A twist of fate, months passed, and the four former friends found themselves leading separate lives. Kemi focused on raising her son with Oladele's help, while Adam tried to forge a relationship with his unborn child. Irene, now alone, struggled with the shame and judgment of her community. Andrew, however, seemed to thrive in his newfound independence. He threw himself into his work, avoiding any contact with the others. But fate had other plans. One evening, while attending a business conference in Abuja, Andrew ran into a familiar face, Oladele. The two men struck up a conversation, unaware of their shared history. It wasn't until Oladele mentioned Kemi that Andrew's expression darkened. "You're Kemi's?" Andrew began, his voice trailing off. "Yes," Oladele said with a proud smile. "She's been through a lot, but we're building something good together." Andrew nodded, a bitter smile playing on his lips. "She certainly has a way of bringing people together." The irony of the situation wasn't lost on either of them. Redemption or ruin. As the years went by, the scars of betrayal began to heal, though they never fully disappeared. The children, now old enough to ask questions, forced their parents to confront the consequences of their actions. "Why don't we live with Daddy?" Kemi's son asked one day, his innocent eyes wide with curiosity. Kemi hesitated, searching for the right words. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes change things, but it doesn't mean we don't love you. The child seemed satisfied with her answer, but Kemi knew the truth would one day come to light. The final twist. Just when it seemed the drama had finally subsided, a new revelation emerged. A routine health check for the children revealed a shocking detail. The DNA results from years ago had been mixed up. Kemi's son wasn't Oladele's after all, he was Andrew's. The news sent shockwaves through the fractured families once again, forcing them to confront their tangled pasts. Kemi stared at the new results, her hands trembling. How is this even possible? Oladele, standing beside her, looked equally stunned. I guess the truth always has a way of coming out. As the four adults gathered once again, they were faced with a choice. Continue the cycle of betrayal and pain, or find a way to forgive and move forward. The decision was far from easy, but one thing was clear. Their lives would never be the same. If you were in their shoes, how would you handle betrayal that cuts so deep? What would you do if your closest friends and family turned their backs on you? Like, share, and comment below with your thoughts, and let us know what you think will happen next. Don't forget to subscribe to African Tales by Kwaku and Akua for more heart-pounding stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat.